Nonprofit and philanthropic leaders devote their lives to the service of others, but sometimes they need a little help. Kristine Michie has been deep in the work and the play of helping changemakers grow their impact for decades. So whether you're ladling soup at a local shelter or attending a UN peace conference, you need to find the balance between the heavy work and a light touch so you don't burn out. And Kristine believes play is at the center of that. Welcome to the PlayFull Podcast, bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world.
Everyone, welcome back to the PlayFull Podcast. We are in the Brave Voices series. I've said this now several weeks in a row. I can't get enough of this. This Brave Voices series is going on and on because there's so many brave voices. And Aisha Benson, who's with us today, CEO of the Nonprofit Finance Fund, is one of those. And I told her when we were getting a prep call, I'm like, I'm really a bit of a fangirl. So I'm just really excited that you're here. Your long history moving capital and access to resources for entrepreneurs of color, for people like just trying to have their place, make their way in this world is remarkable. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so fun. So folks, I'm going to start with a love letter. And, this is the PlayFull Podcast, and we talk about joy, play, and love a lot. This is the first time I've started with a love letter, though. And this is a letter that Aisha wrote just several weeks ago to the nonprofit sector. I told her just a minute ago, I can't figure out what the best part is to read. So y'all got to check it out online. But I think I'm going to read this part. I write to thank you. Okay, so folks, this is to nonprofit leaders and chain makers. I write to thank you, not just for what you do, but for your commitment and persistence amid difficult conditions. You contribute sweat equity that's taken for granted, emotional labor that doesn't get invoiced, and strategic insight that sees possibility where others only see limitation. Aisha, I bet a lot of that was bubbling up, a lot of that sentiment, and then you found just, you've picked all these perfect words in the right order to communicate what I suspect you've been feeling for a while. Tell me a little bit about that letter.
First of all, thank you so much for your kind words. Yeah. It has been bubbling up. It's not recent. It's not a reaction to what's happening with the administration and in the current environment. I have always believed that nonprofits are undervalued, they're under-resourced, they are underestimated. And I don't think that the world truly understands the contributions that nonprofits make to the everyday lives of individuals, to families, to communities, providing critical services, primary care, mental health services, supporting childcare and education, even the building and the management of affordable housing, and really being economic engines, contributors to the economy through job creation. And so I've seen how nonprofits have to make it each and every day without the full costs of their work being covered, constantly in a position in the contracting process where contracts are often on a reimbursable basis, where payments are severely delayed, and therefore the work is being done faithfully, diligently, without fail, and there is not the respect, the appreciation, the recognition for the contributions and for the positive outcomes that are being generated through their labor and through often their ingenuity and creativity and just not only advancing community wealth and well-being, but making America better, right? It's nonprofits that make America great. And so that's been bubbling up for many years. I've been in the community and economic development space for over 30 years. A good portion of that time has been around designing programs, delivering capital and consulting services to nonprofit organizations. I consider it my passion and my deep privilege and desire to support this sector. And so one of the things that I noticed one day was that I would write posts to thank funders for a grant that they provided to us to do the work. And I thought, why am I not writing a letter to the people who are actually making the real impact, really changing the world? And so that was the motivation for writing the letter.
Yeah. And at this time, the energy and the inspiration could be to write a manifesto, a declaration, and all those things as well. To capture some of that in a love letter, I think speaks a lot to you and your spirit and your approach.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I agree with you. Having, like you, worked in the sector for 30 plus years, I had some ahas as I was getting ready for our conversation. I was like, I can't believe I haven't really thought that before. And it wasn't until I was looking at some of your materials and thinking about what you've been up to, that people don't think of nonprofits as businesses, and they don't think of the sector as an industry. It's this, you have just this weird relationship with it. I think society, in the societal consciousness, it's this like oddball do-gooder thing.
Yeah.
And we've got a business model solving the biggest problems, the only revenue stream for which is the largesse of others and maybe a tax deduction. It kind of seems kind of screwy that we set it up this way. And then they have to feel bad for needing to operate it. Meaning that kind of the operation cost, like you said, of not being really paid for the cost of the work. I want to share some of the statistics that that Aisha and the Nonprofit Finance Fund often talk about, and most recently with the State of the Sector survey that came out that I know we're going to talk about. Let me see I may have lots of notes for our conversation. So, or maybe I'll just hand it to you. You probably got it top of your tongue. How many nonprofits and how much economic contribution? And I do remember this, third biggest employer after retail and manufacturing. I think that's something I want to take with me. I want to share with people, like, what is this oddball weird thing? I feel like, is it just that Meals on Wheels thing that I know about? Is it just that animal shelter? Yes, but it's a big industry. So what can you tell us about that to help us dimension how vital it is?
Yes, I say it all the time. Nonprofits are thought of as charity.
Yeah.
And it is the charitable sector, but it is not about charity. Nonprofits are economic engines. And we see it with employment, we see it with contribution to the tax base. I just think that we need to think differently about the role that nonprofits play in our everyday economy and in building up and revitalizing communities. A lot of people were surprised to think about Harvard University, for example, as a nonprofit, right? And to put Harvard in the context of the onslaught that the nonprofit sector, has been facing. Some of the largest developers of affordable housing are nonprofit organizations, and we certainly have an affordable housing crisis going on in this country. And without nonprofits coming to the table and being a part of the solution, and nonprofits, I would argue, are the best partner at the table because nonprofits are so closely connected to the community, understands communities' needs, aspirations, the solutions that bubble up just sort of generatively from those who are closest to the problems and the solutions. And so nonprofits are able to bring that credibility and that voice that is so vital to moving any kind of progress forward in our world.
I've heard it said before, at least if you agree with this, and if I'm recalling it correctly, someone pointed out, they said, nonprofit status is not a business model, it's just a tax designation. And
Mm.
yet it
Mhm.
seems to be seen. And I wonder if in your time in the field, you've ever wished and wondered that we had not gotten stuck with that term, nonprofit, because just and is it, Aisha, only the difference that it's not shareholders that ultimately benefit, but it's the people and the community well-being that benefits? But should we start a campaign to come up with a different name?
I've been a part of this debate for a long time, whether it's nonprofit, not-for-profit, or other terms. At the end of the day, I want us to really understand what nonprofit finance is.
Great.
Nonprofit finance is about ensuring resources are available to mission-driven organizations, and that those resources are well managed to advance the missions, right, of those organizations. It is not about profit making.
Right.
And that's why and so that we just need to understand that's how nonprofit came about, right? It is not about profit making. It is about using resources to drive mission impact, right? Leaders of nonprofits are stewards of resources that are entrusted for public good. Okay, so one of the things that I like to say is that social impact grows when dollars are directly tied to mission-driven outcomes. So is that what we are here for? To see social impact, to see social good come about on a daily basis? If that is the case, then we need to think about nonprofits more credibly, more intentionally, as businesses and as contributors, right? Um, if you think about equity, right? Like we want to see more equitable outcomes. I really think about nonprofits and nonprofit finance as a strategic lever for justice, for equity, for transformation, for lasting impact. If you think about funding practices, right, that are equitable, paying nonprofits on time, caring about nonprofit workers' well-being, which is so critical, ensuring community representation in decision making. When those practices are active, then we can ensure that money is used optimally, that money is used equitably, that social good can come about. So we should not get hung up on the terms or on the tax status. We should be laser focused on these mission-driven organizations and the power that they have, and just the immense, like tremendous lasting impact that they can have if they are resourced properly, and given the credit that they're really due.
For folks who are listening, probably I'm always maybe don't want to assume too much. I think many know a lot about what we're talking about. Some are newer to this. I want to double click on informing those that aren't aware that what Aisha's, one thing she's talking about, what we're talking about is that when a nonprofit organization gets a government contract to do work sort of on behalf of the people through the government dollars, like the government says, I don't do that, but we have a partner that does. And sometimes even with private foundation dollars, it is often the contract is signed and the work begins and the money comes later. And sometimes this can be 90 days, 9 months, 12 months. I mean, there's a lot of working, waiting to be paid. And guess what? That nonprofit entity with its employees, like any other business, is paying them on their regular schedule. They're paying them on their every 2 weeks or whatever it is. And so this having to like navigate that gap is some of what the problem that the Nonprofit Finance Fund and other mission-based lenders and supporters can support. Have I got a good grasp on that? Is that
you have a great grasp on that, and you said nonprofits are the partner, right? So nonprofits are the social safety net partner, but nonprofits are too often treated as a stepchild instead of a partner. And so I think it behooves us to and the point that I was trying to make before, to really make the direct link between money and mission, right? Or like money, financial resources, and nonprofits or mission-driven organizations moving those resources forward, because that is how we can demonstrate how financial resources can change lives and strengthen communities. So that's something that I want people to really be very mindful of, very cognizant of. I also think that it's important that we recognize that there's a power imbalance, and that we exist within an inequitable funding system. And it is not just the relationship between government and nonprofits, it's also philanthropy
Yeah.
and nonprofits. And so we have to contend with that. There are a number of partners for mission-driven organizations that can remedy their practices if they take a moment to think about what true partnership looks like.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Just maybe starting with the simple question, how difficult have we made this, right, for our
Mm.
partner? And could we simplify? Where are there blocks and gaps that are unnecessary?
Mhm.
Aisha, is it accurate to envision if someone's thinking about a business that needs capital, they're like, well, I could just picture that entrepreneur going to the bank and asking for some money, and there'll be some process by which that decision is made. I think it feels it's hard to get a vision in my mind that a nonprofit CEO or executive director would trudge on over to the bank and say, hey, I need some money to do some more of this service we're providing. Is that a fundamental problem that you're a part of solving?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I do want to say I cut my teeth in this industry on nonprofit finance. I've been underwriting nonprofits since I started back. Do I want to say how far back? But
You're in
long
good
time ago.
company. Yes.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
in
And so,
the decades club.
yeah, we're the Decades Club. And I remember when I first, because when I was trained, I had formal credit training, and we were formally trained on for-profit entities. We didn't even have a nonprofit as a part of the curriculum in the credit training program. And I remember when I looked at the financial statements for the first nonprofit that I was underwriting, I immediately wanted to decline the loan, right? Because I said yes, they had a surplus this year, but the next year they have a deficit. And it seems like that's the pattern, what's going on with their financial management there. And but then I begin to learn, well, it's because take a look at their receivables,
Yeah.
right? They're waiting for these contract receivables to come in. And as you accurately pointed out, it could be sometimes 9 months or a year before nonprofits are paid. And yet they're expected to front the cost, to do the work, and wait to be paid. So when it comes time to do underwriting, to access capital, a traditional financial institution might quickly pass without really understanding the dynamics that the sector faces. And it's not just the delayed payments, it's the other thing that I referenced about full cost. Having the full costs of the nonprofit covered. Foundations have a tendency to fund for programmatic activities only. And so the broader enterprise costs need to be fundraised for. And fundraising is not so easy, for all nonprofits. And so they find themselves in a position having to cover, maintenance costs, for example. How do they manage to have reserves? You can never put reserves aside, right? When you're only being funded for the work that's going out the door. How do you ensure that employees can be paid a living wage and have benefits and provide other forms of well-being for your staff if you can't even provide a decent COLA from year to year, because COLA is not built in to many of these contracts. And so we see that playing out in the financials and the takeaway, and I'm going to say, even from the funders, is, well, this nonprofit doesn't know how to really manage its finances well. And that's
Right.
not the case. The problem was not created
Yeah.
by the nonprofit. And so, can we fund for sustainability,
Yeah.
right? Can we fund nonprofits at the full cost of their work in ways that build long-term sustainability, that help nonprofits to avoid those cycles of scarcity, of patchwork budgets, right? And burnout. So that's, I'm deeply passionate about
Yeah.
it, because it's just nothing has changed. And so Nonprofit Finance Fund, we made advocacy a formal third pillar of our work last year because we want to correct the power imbalance. We want to see foundations cede more control, and redistribute power to the communities that we serve. And we want to see the true aspirations, right, of communities being realized. We want to see more trust-based
Yeah.
practices in play, so that philanthropy and government are not imposing restrictions and burdensome reporting, and sort of and payment protocols in that are more of a hindrance than empowering the nonprofits to advance their missions.
I want to talk for so long with you, but we'll gonna kind of keep it in mind that we have an audience that has other things they probably got to go do, but they're not getting up from their seat right now. I know that. I want to pull out a couple statistics that you had that you have in the love letter as well. This is what I was looking for earlier. So 1.8 million nonprofits, 1.8 million nonprofits in the country, 1.4 trillion. And we have to remember not to confuse how trillion is just a little more than billion. No. It's exponential, right? Like it takes,
Exponential.
right? So 1.4 trillion with a T in economic impact, and 12.5 million workers. This seems like a force to be reckoned with. And I think some of, if there's some silver lining that we can start to point to and hold on to in this moment, is I think we're starting to see ourselves more as an industry, as a sector, and the mutuality, as we say. And I had Rusty Stahl on from Fund the People. And I mean,
Yes.
and even that, like he's been at that a while, way before this current moment, talking about, really fund the people, fund the people that are doing this work on behalf of all the others. Oh, and then the other stat, just folks, for 50 million Americans are fed annually by nonprofit organizations.
That's
And
right.
I don't know the latest statistic on how many people are in the US, but that's a big chunk of them, 50 million annually. All right.
It's
Now,
mind-blowing, right?
it is.
Because
Now,
we don't hear about this in the news, and
no.
the workers who are doing this aren't compensated
Yeah.
in a
Right.
commensurate way with the
Right.
impact. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's this weaving through all of this is a sense of that the benefactors are doing a favor to the beneficiaries. That
Yes.
seems like is a bit of the dis-ease we have to kind of admit and address, because it's not no one's doing anyone a favor here. That creates that power dynamic, the supplicant model, and all of that. Okay, now I have to, because it's the Playful Podcast. I won't, those that are waiting for the playful stuff, here it comes. So I'm going to ask you, kind of as a bit of a segue from this heavy work of the moment, where are you finding delight right now in your day, in kind of on the personal side, and also in the midst of a work day?
Can I just say that I love your vision, and I love the opportunity to really reflect on joyfulness, on playfulness, right? And ensuring that we invite playfulness into the work is really important. So for me, I have grandchildren. I have 9 of them. So they are a source of joy for me. I'm a big kid. So I have the most fun with children, with youth. Even through my ministry, I work with the young people. and with my grandchildren, particularly right now, the ones that are two. I have one that's 2 years old, three that are 3 years old, and one that is 6 years old. And so hide and seek and I spy with my little eye and dance in the Gracie's corner and watching Miss Rachel. All those things are in order every day that I can see them or get on FaceTime with them. And even the 1 year old and the 10-month-old, just looking at them fills me with a lot of joy and helps to keep me going.
Aisha, how many of them are within, let's say, an hour of where you live?
So yeah, all of them except for four are here. So 5 of them are within an hour.
Yeah. Now, folks, we're going to take a break in a minute and eat some ice cream. And what this ice cream is going to be is what Aisha was able to hold on to after she invited a bunch of these grandchildren and their folks over for a little ice cream party with the Taharka brothers that arrived. So we talked in advance because I knew that ice cream party was going to happen, to just hold on to maybe half a pint for the recording. And we're going to do that in just a minute.
That's going to be tough.
I know, totally. Aisha, I have had guests who have gotten the 6 pints from Taharka, and on the day we record, they've been in their freezer and it's been there and untouched for days. I have others that have had to label it professional ice cream and put stickers on it in the freezer to keep the family away.
Yes. Well, I am an ice cream lover. I think soup warms the soul for many people. Ice cream definitely does it for me, even though it's cold. So it is definitely my comfort dessert, my go-to. So I was just so pleased to see that this was a part of the podcast.
Oh man, I love you. I tell you, when I get all the yeses, and I like to think that people, like me, like the subject matter on that, but their ice cream is a really great opener. In fact, let's just go ahead and do that right now. Let's step away and grab our ice cream, and then we'll come right back, folks. Okay, so now Aisha and I are back from our freezers. You guys, when I have guests come on and they've already served some, and it's like at their place, I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna melt. I can't stand melted ice cream. So I'm glad we waited, went and got it. And Aisha, please tell us a little bit about what arrived and what you chose.
So I have honey graham, Taharka, a pint in front of me, which is very dangerous because I can't eat a whole pint of ice cream on my own. And I chose honey graham because I do enjoy graham crackers, number one. But because you and I had spoken before, you told me it was the best one. So that is why I chose this one. So is it okay if I take a bite?
Oh, please. Absolutely. Okay. To wait this long. Okay. Right. And how does it stay? How does the crunchy granular part stay? Right?
I don't know. I don't know.
Someone said it must be science.
I don't know, and I don't know if I care. I just know I just know I love it.
All right, and then I'm having Taharka Brothers Keep Your Head Up. It's a Tupac flavor. It's blackberry crumble layered throughout vanilla ice cream.
And blackberry.
Blackberry crumble.
Okay.
Similarly, it has the crunchiness like a cobbler kind of thing. And so Taharka, you all check them out. So Taharka is spelled Taharka, Taharka Brothers in Baltimore. Like I said, social enterprise, for those who don't know, it's a double bottom line, right? So it's perfect. And I'm talking with you, Aisha, about a social enterprise, right? Because that's another kind of model, right? Where it's a for-profit business with a mission at its core, right? And they are one of those. They're also employee owned, employing young men, especially in the Baltimore area. I went and did an episode in their factory last year. It was such, I had to go see it.
How fun.
So fun.
That's fun. That's always my favorite part of the job, is to go out and see the businesses and how they operate, and to meet those who are leading the business on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But I love social enterprises. And while we are a nonprofit finance fund, we do finance social enterprises. And you'll see on our website that we say that we create a more equitable world by supporting mission-driven organizations, right? Not just nonprofits, but those that are mission-driven and that are helping the world just to transform, right? So our services help them adapt, thrive, and drive positive change.
And it's been an interesting time, watching, we had a flurry of pledges and some actions, over the last 5 years from the corporate world regarding, emphasizing mission and putting kind of people at the center. And then there's been, at least kind of in proclamation, some retrenchment from that because people are afraid that they're going to get in trouble if they're doing things like that. I'm thrilled to see, and one of our podcast guests, Nancy Levine Stearns, is doing a lot of the reporting on the DEI front, and she is really lifting up so many, and there are so many companies that are leaning in. There's a great DEI job of the day post that comes up, and it lists all the companies and jobs that are still being posted and filled. And I just thinking about, companies doing good, because there's so much power to unlock there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we need everyone, to continue to lock arms and address the systemic inequities that exist. And that's the only way that we're going to see systems change and movement beyond the structural barriers that have kept communities in poverty. Yeah, so.
Now I got to ask you, before you had this ice cream right now, when's the last time you had ice cream? Is it a big part of your week?
I'm laughing because it really hasn't been that long. It was today is Friday, and it was Wednesday.
Okay. I do a little kind of morning inventory when I do some kind of setting my intentions for the day and things like that. And one of the things that I kind of think about, how was my, my diet yesterday? Like, did I eat? Did I fuel myself well yesterday? And I do make a little note on, not if I had, but how much ice cream I had.
Okay. Well, I have a friend who can get 2 spoonfuls of ice cream, and then she puts the pint back every day. Talk about discipline.
Absolutely. No way. You were mentioning about the danger of having a pint in your hand. That magic moment when the spoon hits the bottom, you're like, oh, I did it again.
I try to compensate. So I think I'm gonna have salad for dinner so that I can have ice cream afterwards.
When my kids were little, one time we tested the premise, the whole thing as a mom, you got to say, don't eat that, you're going to spoil your dinner. So we tried one night, because I'd been saying that, because that's part of what moms say. And I said, okay, tonight we'll have ice cream first, and then we'll see if it, let's see if that's really true. And it was true. We didn't really feel like the chicken and broccoli and rice after we had ice cream.
Did you pack it up and have it for leftovers
Exactly.
the next day? Yeah, I don't know. My husband can eat dessert before his meal. I don't know how he does it.
No, I cannot. Well, I'm glad we got to have this part, and we're going to continue the conversation. And feel free to keep taking bites, because I know I do, and it's not fair if you do all the talking, don't get to have any ice cream. So let's keep the conversation going. So Aisha, having our ice cream and just having had our ice cream, I want to ask you, what's the scoop on how you came to care? What's an impact origin story, early memory of the world being bigger than just the folks under your roof, or maybe even just on your block?
It's a great question. I am from a community that some would label the ghetto, low income community, the inner city. For me, it was a place of vibrancy. It was a place of strong culture and talent and entrepreneurialism. And in fact, my mother and my aunt were entrepreneurs, and they had great businesses. They had several, but they never realized the full potential of their businesses because they never had the investment. They weren't able to secure the financial investment that I think any successful business needs to start and to grow. And I also did see poverty around me. And I've always cared as a young person. I used to bring food from my refrigerator downstairs to a neighbor because I saw that they didn't have as much. And so I never felt like I was going without, at least not to the extent that I wouldn't be able to help someone else. So I think I've always been given and giving. And I was jaded for a time because I did not see financial resources going into my community in the same way that I saw it going into other communities. When I went to high school, I went to a private high school, a boarding school, and I saw children 16 years old getting brand new cars, nice cars, with personalized license plates, right? I saw when I would go on break and come home just to hang out on the block or, the stoop. They were going to Mexico, they were coming back with tans, from places. And I really began to realize the connection between money and power and privilege and race. And I wanted to do something about that. I did a lot of volunteer work in high school and in college, and I was really blessed and fortunate to be selected for an internship program when I was in college that placed me at Chemical Bank. Chemical Bank is a predecessor bank to JP Morgan Chase. During that assignment, I was tasked with doing a landscape analysis on the Harlem community, which was my community. It was great to do research and to find data that spoke to the experience, my daily experience, what I could see actually manifesting in my community over time. It was also great to meet with representatives of the bank and to see a real passion and a commitment to provide services and capital and resources and other forms of partnership and support for the Harlem community. And I really realized that money could be used for social good. And so I abandoned the track that I was on for my career and said, I'm going to go into banking, but banking for community development. And that's where I was able to start my career. And it's still where I am today because I see that access to capital is so critical in communities, and that capital has to be co-designed with community. That's how I transitioned into CDFI, because at a bank, I think the intentions are right, but it's still so prescriptive and it's still sort of bureaucratic and subject to shareholder value. Whereas in the CDFI space, it really is about lifting up community voices, working in partnership alongside community, to move the work forward.
Yeah, folks, we've talked about CDFIs, community development financial institutions, before. We love our acronyms. And Aisha actually and I first met when I was working at a CDFI, Axion, and you've worked at Carver Bank, you've worked at True
Yes.
Fund, and I got to give a shout out to Chase as well. They're a close partner with my firm Impactful on some work we're doing on a funder collective in the New York City region, funding intermediaries, helping entrepreneurs of color in the region. So I've gotten to be, I'm aware of Chase's commitment to that work through funding CDFI partnerships. And we're also doing something with True Fund right now in the New York area, which is great. So when we're talking about play and joy, and thank you for you certainly your words, and then I'm having the pleasure of seeing your smile and your eyes sparkle when you say all that. Tell me about, you mentioned your ministry, and I don't think you mean, I mean, lowercase, uppercase, but I mean, you actually have a ministry. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, it's definitely uppercase.
Yes.
I'm an ordained pastor. I am in ministry with my husband. We pastor a church where we live in Poughkeepsie, New York. It's actually our second church plant that we've had, and we really believe in church beyond the walls. So we're a community serving church. Food ministry has been a part of what we do from the time that we planted our first church. And actually, even when we met at church, so at the prior ministry where we met. And so we do mass food pantries for the community. in partnership with some local nonprofits, with the food bank. We also deliver hot meals to the community, also in partnership with another nonprofit. So that's a big part of our ministry. We have clothing giveaway, and we work with the young people. We also provide financial literacy training. Which, given my background, I felt, how can I take what I'm doing every day for a living and give that out through volunteer service and community service to the local community.
So you are all the challenges, I was gonna say troubles, but challenges, opportunities, good and bad stuff about running a nonprofit. You're actually experiencing a lot of that yourself as a pastor and leading your church.
Yes, we see it playing out in our community where individuals have not had any type of formal financial training. They don't know how to put together budgets. They don't understand how credit works, right? How the credit system works. And wealth building really eludes them. And so for me, I want, just as a personal mission statement, to help people to be all that they can be. I consider myself a servant leader. So I always want to build people up, equip them, give them the tools, the resources, the information that they need to do better, for themselves. And so, and that financial education piece is so critical. And we've seen people that have come back and said, my credit score is 700. I had someone come back and said, I'm 777 right now, which was amazing. One of the members just recently purchased their first home. And so these are the kinds of outcomes that we're seeing.
Okay, so then, not that I need to like weave this together for the audience, because I'm sure they are right there with us, but like those stories you just shared right there are the stories of making America better. Those are the stories, right? Because it's one person, one community, one neighbor, one block at a time. Someone that's the foundation, the tapestry and it's happening in the case of what you just shared with us through your church, through the nonprofit, through the service. And then I know you get to do that on a grand scale through the nonprofit finance fund. So thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
So can I ask you for 2 calls to action? One on the kind of the professional, even speaking to, you choose your audience, the nonprofit leaders themselves, or perhaps the philanthropic leaders, and then a call to action there, and then a call to action to the people, and maybe share something around the ideas about how to bring joy and play and light into their lives right now when it might feel dark.
Okay. Well, I'd like a call to action to all of our change makers, all of our leaders of organizations and movement builders. I want to be able to acknowledge you and say that you have great minds, you have powerful minds, but those minds are full, right? They're full from planning and organizing and strategizing, problem solving, right? Solutions creation, and innovating. And I encourage you to create space through playfulness and joyfulness, right? Because I think being playful, inviting playfulness, actually can stretch the brain, if that makes any sense, right? It stretches the brain, creating space for humor, for laughter, for hope, for imagination, for rest and relaxation. And we need that to regenerate, to be refreshed again, to be clear-eyed about the work on a daily basis. So that is my call to action for all of us who are in the thick of it together. And then just for the nonprofit leader, again, I honor you. I thank you for all that you do. Continue to be as resilient as you have demonstrated yourselves to be, and keep fighting, keep articulating the power of your work, the outcomes that your work is generating. Really understand the full cost of your operation, and be emboldened to share that with your government and philanthropic partners. That is absolutely something. So the skill around financial storytelling is something that you want to adapt, because when you're able to really convey what you're doing, what the cost is of the work that you're doing, and then what kind of impact the work is creating, then more of your funding partners will at least, they'll at least be in the know. I can't say for a fact that it's going to change their practices, but it might inspire change behavior and practices from your funding partners.
Thank you. At the risk of just going a little bit long, I had a nonprofit leader I was working with who at their annual event was up on the stage making comments, and she said proudly, and I want to tell you, we only use 12 cents, of every dollar on our administrators. And, I waited the appropriate amount of time after she came off, and it was her big evening, but I talked to her later. And I said, if I could, I'd encourage you to never say that again. If you're going to talk about how much you spend, quote unquote, on administrative overhead, even those words don't count, are diminutive, right? They're making it sound like it's not important. But I said, if you're going to talk about, let me tell you what we can do with 12 cents. And then lean into and brag about how you're spending that. Don't brag on how little it is, brag about what you're doing with it. And ideally then even say, and imagine if we had more, what we could do.
That is it. And I think especially now we're operating in a time of uncertainty and change. Nonprofit Finance Fund just wrapped up its 10th State of the Nonprofit Sector Survey. We had over 2,200 respondents from across the country, and it really gives us an insight into nonprofits' programmatic, operational, and financial health. And what we have seen reported out from these nonprofit workers is that demand is on the rise. Demand is on the rise, and at the same time, resources are disappearing. And I'm going to say resources are being stolen away and redistributed to those with wealth and power. And so we must resource nonprofits appropriately. If anything, there should be more dollars going to the sector and not less.
Right. Okay. We'll probably get on again. We definitely have repeat episodes. And so we might want to get on again in a few months, and hopefully we'll have some great updates because of the work that you're doing, the work that's been shared, and that people taking that information and activating around it. So, okay, but for now, we're going to wrap up this episode of the PlayFull Podcast. We're bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world. And Aisha, I'm so glad to get to know you better. And for all those who are meeting you today, and I'm sure lots of good friends listening, their hearts are warmed. And I'm thinking we got to get some ice cream to your church. We got to have one of your ministries, Ice Cream Social Justice.
Wow.
So let's talk about that.
That's incredibly generous. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me on. I really have enjoyed the conversation, and I really want to applaud you for this podcast and for the great voices that you are elevating and amplifying.
What an honor. Thank you so much, Aisha. Blessings.
Yes, same to you. Bye.
Okay, great. That's it. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to the PlayFull Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review it on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know of a leader or organization that's doing good in the world and you'd love to help us help them amplify their message, I would love to have them on the show. go to the show notes and click there, or go to impactfulinc.com/contact. And that's impactful with 2 L's, inc.com/contact. And let us know who you're thinking about. Can't wait to see you next time.